you sad because you keep thinking about your place in society as the eyes of everyone looking to you for guidance begins to weigh heavily on your young soul?
Only to realize you were just one of the many leaves bending to the will of the wind.
In a never-ending race of cruel mistress that is time, an illusionistic prison created by man, shackling us all to the stream we call life.
That's not it.
So, I got this request to style Powerpuff Girls. There's gonna be a remake, it's gonna be, a live action again, and it's going to be on CW, and it's going to be, of course, a dark reimagination. There's a lot of challenges with making a show like that, which the first thing that I'm going to address here is a list of challenges that this remake would present to the creators. And the fact of the matter is, the suggestion to make a restyling of Powerpuff Girls came from my previous video about Winx and restyling Winx. And the thing is, Winx lends itself a lot better to styling and to restyling and to making a live action show, even though both have the element of magic, or superpowers or whatever, and they're kind of similar in the sense that it's girls who are fighting evil or whatever. They're actually very different in terms of remaking it and in terms of reimagining it. And I basically rewatched episodes. I'm compiling a new idea of what it could be from the perspective of the 98 cartoon, the 2016 version of it as well, and the anime version. First of all, we have to talk about the fact that styling is not a thing on its own as much as it's part of the entirety of the art direction of the show. And oftentimes, shows and movies that are made about superheroes are extremely ugly. It's kind of like a joke at this point that, like, for example, all of the Marvel movies, some of the DC movies are very ugly. The one that kind of stands apart from it is the DC Dark Knight and stuff like that, because at least it works together in terms of what it's trying to do. But most of the time, they don't quite work visually because they are not done as a cohesive whole. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know who their art directors are. I have a feeling that movie productions and TV shows are not really allowing for much input besides the set building or something like that when it comes to these things, because it's clear that they don't have a cohesive direction most of the time. The costumes are doing one thing, the set design does another thing, the writing is going for a third thing. It's all over the place basically with these types of shows. So let's look at them as in terms of like the characters and the way that they are drawn. So first and foremost, I think that a lot of people are forgetting that canonically these characters are not quite human. It's kind of like a running joke in the show as well that their hands don't have fingers, that they're kind of just like little nubs, and their feet are very round compared to other characters in the show. So let's compare them. All of these kids, they're from their universe, they're from their class and stuff like that. All the other kids definitely look quite different from them. If you would compare that to Winx, in Winx everyone is kind of a human. They're fairies, but they look quite human, and they all look similar to each other, so the art style is not changed for them.
Hi, Pika.
But we have this anime to also look at, which kind of suggests that they're just like human, because we can let go of that part for the live action. It's not that big of a deal because canonically it's also like they have been drawn as humans, so it's fine. There is another really big difference between this show and Winx, and why Winx is more suitable for live action than Powerpuff Girls. And that reason is the setting. So in Winx we get a completely different setting. It's a magical world, a magical realm. You can do whatever the hell you want. So the costuming is not restricted to the world that we know. And in Powerpuff Girls, they are living like in an average American city. It's quite large, but the architecture and everything is very North American, very new. If you have watched any CW shows that are like superhero shows, or if you've seen Marvel movies or DC movies, no matter how good the character looks on their own, if you put them in a matching setting, they will look ridiculous to compare to everybody else in just a regular city. to pull this off, you would have to change the surroundings a lot. And I don't mean just the architecture and stuff like that. You can get away with architecture sometimes because of just color grading and other things like that to, like, you know, get the right mood or whatever. I mean the costumes of everybody else in the frame. And then it would kind of make this world very difficult to define because it's not technically a completely different world, so you can't change all the rules in it without having to explain everything about why it's changed. So basically the setting is just not ideal for changing it in a way that would stay true to the original. The thing is, you also have to have like a reason for why you're remaking something. If you're remaking it in a way that changes a lot about the original, you still have to question your decisions. I think that they can do whatever they want, but if you stray away so far that it's not even Powerpuff Girls anymore, then it seems very strange that you even called it that. You could have just created a new show with new names. They didn't have to be Powerpuff Girls. I also looked up their versions that are teen versions. There was an episode where they have like kind of a vision of themselves in the future where they, as teenagers, gave up on being Powerpuff Girls and being superheroes. The premise of this show, of the live action right now, is a dark version of it, of course, as it always is. And as you know, if you've seen my previous video, I like color, and I like excitement, and I like glitter and other things like that. So of course that's not really up my alley, but I can still understand that if they do it well. A lot of people were saying that, oh, it's not canonically true, that they would like give up fighting or whatever. And I wouldn't say that it's true or untrue. There is a thing that they could point to, which is that episode where they see themselves as teenagers who gave up on fighting crime, and in that episode they look like this. So we kind of have a little bit of an idea of what kind of changes would happen with them. There's another one I have right here. The only reason why I do have a hope for this reincarnation, I don't think it's gonna be faithful to the original or anything like that, but it might gonna be a good show on its own, only because of Diablo Cody. It's the screenplay writer of Jennifer's Body. That's the creator of the show. The person who wrote Jennifer's Body, and it's a really good time for her to have a big project in the works right now because the public opinion on Jennifer's Body has changed because people re-examined it outside of the lens of the media and the critics that were talking about it back when it got released. There's a lot of different types of essays online you can watch on it. It's a pretty good movie that got a really bad rollout that affected it in many ways, and the biggest reason as to why it didn't do as well as it should have done in terms of even critically, it's because of misogyny, unfortunately. But in any case, this is the creator, so I'm curious because, you know, it could be very interesting. I don't know where they would go with it, but could be going somewhere very exciting with it. I am going to say that in terms of the story, I'm not here for all of those they're disillusioned 20-year-olds, whatever, 20-something-year-olds. I'm tired of disillusioned stuff. I'm very tired of, like, our reality in general. So I don't know why they decided to go for another dark reboot nowadays at this time. But they're doing what they're doing, and we're gonna work within those constraints. Let's get into the styling. I'm going to explain my reasoning as we go along. We're gonna start with Bubbles. I think that the show is kind of leaning towards the whole idea of them giving up on it and not really wanting to be superheroes. Maybe they're gonna go back to it in the show, which probably is something that's gonna happen. But I think that because they're in their 20s, I don't know when exactly, I don't know if it's early or late 20s. In any case, I'm going to give them like a career path, or at least something that they're working towards. And with Bubbles, I was thinking that she would be a flower shop owner or a vet, depending on age. Maybe she's gonna be pursuing a degree in veterinary school or something like that, as well as I think she would probably have like a side TikTok account. There's this Japanese girl who just posts like her morning routines or something like that, and it's very quiet, and she just like does like her thing with like her clothes, and it's very cutesy. And I feel like she would have something like that, just like something that she would be doing on the side, not as much as like her main thing, based on her personality and how she was, how caring and lovely she was, that she would be too into the numbers of the social media as much as she would be just into communicating through social media. This is the type of style that I have picked out for her. her. So these types of skirts kind of came to mind when I was thinking about her. Like low rise with a little like tank top or something like that. Slightly hippie-ish, but not quite. That would be just like a few times she would be wearing that kind of outfit. It's not her main style or her signature look or anything like that. Of course, there needs to be some baby doll dresses because it's Bubbles. And even if she's more in a darker reincarnation or whatever, I still think that she would be very cute. That's something that's just very constant about her character in the cartoon. This type of lace thing on bodycon dresses kind of came back in the last year or two. I think it would be something that she would be wearing casually. Of course, really cute nails. This short nails, we're all seeing all over the place. Short nails with some graphics on the nails. And those, you know, really big, chunky plastic rings and stuff like that. I think that she would be the one who would be wearing something like that. Then I put a bunch of examples of something that I think would be her signature silhouette of her neckline. I think that this type of neckline looks like it accentuates people's delicate features. So I think that she would be wearing something like this, where it's a square neckline. It has like white straps, not necessarily wide, but I think that the wide strap, usually the way that it kind of supports the material, and I love when it's a very silky kind of material. It supports this material better to look more like a square neckline rather than a cowl neckline, because it's very easy to kind of slip into that different neckline when you're working with materials that are this flowy. I think that it would just make her look very delicate. Delicate is the word that I'm looking for. And I also have this one as an example as well. All of them kind of have the same neckline and the same kind of straps. I just think that it would suit her a lot, and I think that she should be wearing that a lot. It would immediately give whichever outfit she's wearing, doesn't matter what kind of outfit, this type of neckline with this type of material and this type of straps would give her a look that's very recognizable and very subtly recognizable. You would never be able to be like, oh, like I know exactly what makes Bubbles Bubbles, but whenever you would see an outfit, you would be like, oh, I feel like Bubbles from this show would wear this. And then this last dress that I have, I feel like she would wear something like that if she was going out or something. Again, similar neckline. It's a little bit different because of the way that it's... Rika, you got me so scared. Even though the dress is cinched in a little bit, it's still reminiscent of a baby doll dress, right? In the way that it's like draped and everything. So we're on to Blossom. So with Blossom, I see that if she's not going to be fighting crime, she's going to try and build a career, a very successful career in a highly competitive field. So I'm seeing her as maybe a lawyer in a big city like New York or something like that, or trying to become a lawyer. So she's going to law school. So I've got a few looks for her. So I think that she would be wearing a lot of brands that are very well known and high-end brands. First of all, I think that Powerpuff Girls are quite loaded. Their dad's house, their professor's house is pretty big. It's modern. He definitely has the money to have a lab in his goddamn house and all of that stuff. So I think that they're actually going to be coming from money even if they're quitting crime fighting or whatever. So I think that she would be able to afford all of that even though she would be a student or a new lawyer in the big city, you know. So I put a few Chanel looks that are kind of 90s Chanel with a lot of high-waisted skirts and cropped suit jackets and stuff like that. She would wear Mary Janes, of course, but the ones that have like a nice heel with a little bit of a platform, these types of suits. She would be into basic things like Gucci as well. She's after the brands for the sake of the status that they present to people, because she's trying to fit in a very competitive field with a lot of rich kids that are becoming young professionals. So she's trying to fit in that kind of group of people. So she would be thinking about more like, you know, Chanel suits, something that's very basic. Things like, I don't really see her wearing something like Peter Doe or something like that, something more modern, you know. I do see her, however, in suits like this as well. But it still has the same kind of vibe. And when she's not wearing like one of those suits or something like that, actually I'm gonna show you another suit. It's this is more 80s, but I kind of feel like she would be wearing very bright and very monochromatic looks. Like the entire look is monochromatic, shoulder pads as well. And I see her when she's wearing something else rather than like a suit. I think she would be wearing a lot of shirts that are have a very straight line and oftentimes off the shoulder but very tight. Basically, this shirt is the perfect example of what I mean. And her hair, I'm kind of imagining that she would have a very like long, straight hair, and she would just wear it in like a ponytail or something like that when she's in court or she's working or something. Then we've got Buttercup. So with Buttercup, I kind of tried to mix some things together. I don't want her to be too goth, too punk, even though that would be a very obvious decision to do that kind of look. I don't want her to be boring either, you know. So what I've come up with is like a mix of things. I think what I want is a few crosses here and there that are very 90s, but not like a bunch of them like they used to be worn by like gothic kind of people who are leaning into that. Think of The Craft from the 90s, like that movie, but tone it down quite a bit to make it a little bit more modern and a little bit less about the gothic nature of it, and think more about a person who's influenced by a bunch of things that kind of create this look. So I was thinking that she would be definitely the type of person who would wear really big pants, like jeans and stuff like that, really long ones, really straight or baggy, with a very big graphic t-shirt. This kind of look, or this one, like I feel like she would have a graphic tee or a graphic shirt of whichever shirt it is. It needs to be really big and graphic and really big baggy pants. This literally says spicy girl, which she is the spice part of the recipe, so it makes sense. I would say that maybe some hoops, kind of mix American street style with a little bit of gothic influences, a little bit of 90s, mix them together, make them a little bit more homebody, kind of relaxed, because she's kind of a troublemaker, but like in a funny way. Like she's a little bit mischievous and she wants things to be entertaining rather than trying to hurt people per se. I'm thinking about this kinds of things where it's very chill, and it could be like a low-rise jean, kind of throwing it back to like 2007, you know. I also think that the entirety of the brand of MYOB, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I will bring up this pants. I think it's firefighter pants. Love these pants and will love them till the day I die. I really like pants that are split and have weird embellishments connecting them back together. This look is very much that, and I think that she would be wearing like big pants that have a lot of interesting thing going on them. Heavy, oversized jackets, not straight jackets, but more poofy in terms of the silhouette of it, not necessarily like a puff jacket, you know. So there's an example of another pair. I think that this look would be very much her, like very big graphic t-shirt, very big pants. They're quite disheveled, you know, but like obviously in like a fashionable way. I think her hair would literally mimic her cartoon hair, where she would have short hair like a bob with hair styled to curl upwards and outwards. I think this type of hairstyle would suit her a lot and would be so similar to what she has in the actual cartoon. She can have some bangs like this, or I really love the necklace. I would also want to show this image. This type of makeup, just a little bit of a smoky eye, maybe less intense than this, because I think that she would be a little bit more laid back rather than trying to be very punk and goth and whatever, you know. I think it would look very interesting on her. I kind of see her as like trying to just figure her life out. She would have less direction than the other two girls, I think. She would be having a little bit more of a difficult time adjusting to living as someone who's not a superhero, you know, someone who doesn't fight for a living, basically. She is more of a person who fits that kind of lifestyle, and I think that that would be a point of difficulty for her. So there we have it. This is my version of what I think Powerpuff Girls could be in this new live action. I had to tone it down quite a bit because, well, the setting and the show itself doesn't lend itself well to adaptations like that, but I'm hopeful just because of the creator of the show being the creator of Jennifer's Body. Let's see how it goes, and maybe when it comes out I'll come back and do like a little bit of a review of the show, and if it lived up to any of the expectations, or if it did any justice to the show, and if it stands on its own, and if it offers anything new and anything exciting to us. Thank you for watching. You can suggest anything else if you want to. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything, because chances are, based who's commenting and what people are commenting, we kind of have the same interests. So if you want me to talk about something, I probably have something to say about it. See you.